We are joining with many American churches in resurrecting an old Easter custom begun by the Greeks in the early centuries of Christianity. Holy Humor Sunday celebrations of Jesus' resurrection on the Sunday after Easter were the norm. For centuries in Eastern Orthodox, Catholic, and Protestant countries, the week following Easter, including Bright Sunday, the Sunday after Easter, was observed by the faithful as days of joy and laughter, with parties and picnics to celebrate Jesus' resurrection. Churchgoers and pastors played practical jokes on each other, drenched each other with water, told jokes, sang, and danced. We won't take it quite that far on this inaugural effort, but there's always next year. The custom was rooted in the musings of early church theologians like Augustine and Gregory of Nyssa and John Chrysostom, that God had played a practical joke on the devil by raising Jesus from the dead. Risus Paschalis, the Easter laugh, the early theologians called it. And along the way, things went so far towards celebration and laughter that the Pope actually had to issue instructions to tone it down. This, of course, led to the phrase party poper. That's called a groaner. The idea of a Sunday given to humor seems particularly challenging to Presbyterians. Many of us who were brought up in the church were pretty well taught that laughter and humor was not exactly what God wanted from us in worship. Just look at our spiritual ancestors. John Calvin is always pictured as being weaned on persimmon juice. John Knox always looks like his shoes are 2 sizes too small. Go into the buildings of long-established churches like ours, and there are usually portraits of former pastors hanging on the wall. Most of them look like they weren't all that happy to be there in life, and they continue to look pretty gloomy in death. So we'll admit that we are in somewhat uncharted waters this morning, but it's still Easter. And what sound could be better during the Easter season than the sound of laughter? There was a session meeting at a little country church. One of the newer, younger elders made a motion. I move that we buy a chandelier for the church. This led to an hour-long discussion of the matter, at the end of which an old, revered elder stood. The session fell silent in anticipation of his words. Now, I appreciate the motion that's here before us. I have 3 concerns. First, ain't none of us got enough education to spell chandelier when we order one out to Sears and Roebuck's catalog. Second, once it gets here, ain't none of us knows how to play it. And third, what we really ought to be talking about is putting more lights in the church. When you look in a concordance to see how many times the word laugh and laughter appears in the Bible, it's actually depressing. There aren't that many. We do read about joy and happiness and blessings, but there's not too many instances of anyone being gripped with laughter. And still, the ancient wisdom writer we know as Koheleth tells us in the book of Ecclesiastes, for everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to weep and a time to laugh. Laughter has its place and time. Laughter is a creation of God. Everything God created is proclaimed good. Therefore, laughter is good. And according to a WebMD website article, laughter is good for us. We change physiologically when we laugh. We stretch muscles throughout our face and our bodies. Our pulse and blood pressure go up, and we breathe faster, sending more oxygen out into our tissues. People who believe in the benefits of laughter say that it can be like a mild workout, the only kind I'm going to get, and may offer some of the same advantages of a workout. The effects of laughter and exercise are very similar, says Dr. Wilson, an expert in the field. Combining laughter and movement, like waving your arms, is a great way to boost your heart rate. One pioneer in laughter research, William Fry, claimed it took 10 minutes on a rowing machine for his heart rate to reach the level it would after just 1 minute of hearty laughter. So this sermon may be better for you than you imagined. One day, Groucho Marx was getting off an elevator, and he happened to meet a clergyman. The clergyman came up to him, put out his hand, and said, "I want to thank you for all the joy you've brought into the world." And Groucho shook hands and replied, "Thank you, Reverend, and I want to thank you for all the joy you've taken out of it." I love the story from Genesis that we read again this morning. 3 mysterious strangers arrive at Abraham's camp. Abraham immediately springs into action, offering the hospitality native to the Middle East. The strangers are served food and enter into conversation with Abraham, during which they disclose that Abraham and Sarah are going to be parents. Now remember, Abraham is nearly 100 years old, and Sarah is pushing 90, and pushing it kind of hard. But when Sarah hears this news, as she's hiding in the tent flap, she giggles. The word in Hebrew for laughter or giggle is Yitzhak or Isaac. And when the baby is born, that's what they name him. And in the epilogue to the story, Sarah says, "God has brought laughter for me, and everyone who hears will laugh with me." Imagine being so filled with laughter and joy that you simply had to share it with everyone you meet. That's Sarah's story. And the source of her laughter and joy is God. There were 3 candidates for the ministry of the Word and Sacrament who were to appear before the Presbyterian Committee to be approved for ordination. One by one, the candidates were called into the meeting room. The first candidate appeared and was asked, "What is the meaning of Easter?" The candidate paused and said, "Well, it was night and the sky was filled with stars, and then angels started singing to some shepherds, and then a bright..." They said, "Stop there. Go back to seminary and try to learn something." Second candidate came in, same question, "What is the meaning of Easter?" Nervous pause. "Well, it's a day of love when we give candy and flowers to the people who go back to seminary and try to learn something, would you?" Third candidate's called in. "What is the meaning of Easter?" With confidence, the third candidate begins. "Well, very early in the morning." "Yes." "On the first day of the week." "Yes." "They go out to the garden." "Yes." "And the stone is rolled away and he's standing in the doorway." "Oh, right." "And if he sees his shadow, there's 6 more weeks of winter." If ever there was a reason for laughter, it is surely to be found in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. God completely turned the tables, shouted back to us life when we had shouted death. God totally and perfectly had the last word to our rejection of God and God's messenger. And perhaps most importantly, He assured us of our forgiveness and our adoption as children of God. What could be more appropriate and honest than laughter? We talk a lot about grace, and well, we should. But grace is best when it is celebrated with laughter and joy. In our laughter, we see our arrogance and our ignorance. We're laughing at ourselves. And in our laughter, we see the goodness and righteousness of God who loves us in spite of ourselves. We believe with the Bible that there is a time to weep and a time to laugh. We believe with St. John Chrysostom that laughter has been implanted in our souls. We believe with Thomas Aquinas that there is a time for playful deeds and jokes. We believe with Martin Luther that you have as much laughter as you have faith. We believe with John Calvin that, listen, he really said this, we are nowhere forbidden to laugh. We believe with Wesley, for all you former Methodists, that a sour religion is the devil's religion. We believe with Soren Kierkegaard that humor is intrinsic to Christianity. We believe with Fyodor Dostoevsky that if a person laughs well, they are a good person. We believe with G.K. Chesterton that a good joke is the closest thing we have to divine revelation. We believe with Flannery O'Connor that Christianity is a strangely cheery religion. We believe with Elton Trueblood that you should never trust a theologian that doesn't have a sense of humor. And we believe with one of the greatest theologians of the 20th century, Charles Schulz, that humor is proof that everything is going to be all right with God nevertheless. So laugh. After all, Jesus said, the laugh shall be first. For now and evermore. Amen.